topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program, which has been brought to you with passion and pride since February of 2015. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. If we've not met before and you don't know me, I'm a workforce advisor, organizational psychologist, management consultant, logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Gusto Now help companies enliven and fortify their operations by building a dynamic, high-performance culture, inspirational leadership, and nurturing managers activated by meaning and purpose. And many people don't recognize just how critical inspiration is. And did you know that inspired employees outperform their satisfied peers by a factor of 2.25 to 1? In other words, inspiration is good for the bottom line. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at gusto-now.com or my personal site, elisecortez.com. Getting into today's program, we have Dana Williams, who is an executive coach, speaker, author, and founder of Dana Williams Consulting. After 25 years in leadership at Southwest Airlines, she now helps leaders move from performing to thriving by aligning their strengths, core values, and purpose. As a Gallup certified Clifton Strengths coach, she is the creator of the Strengths Journal and the Your Authentic Imprint framework. She is a Forbes Coaches Council member and contributor, host of the Dominate Your Day podcast, and author of the Internal Revolution, Lead Authentically and Build Your Personal Brand from Within, which we'll be talking about today. She joins us today from Dallas, like me. Dana, welcome to Working on Purpose.
Welcome. It's so fun to be on your show.
On the other side of the mic, right? It was so good to be on your podcast, and now I get to have you on mine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let us celebrate this beautiful thing you brought into the world. Look at this. It's just gorgeous. And I loved being at your book launch here in Dallas. That was fantastic. And I know what it feels like, to have this plan, this dream of having a book, and then you hold it in your hands and then people are reading it and learning from it. It's so amazing.
It is. I get goosebumps every time I think about that
Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, I really get it. I remember when my first book came out and it had been, author had been on my resolution list for probably more than a decade before it actually happened.
And now look at you, like one book a year or something.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. That's what we're going for.
I'm like, oh, I got to rest from this first one.
Yeah, you do. And it's just like childbirth and then you're fine.
That's
right. Well, let's open with the gift and the promise of doing the work that you espouse in the book. I think that it's just so beautiful what you put forth. You say in your book, the refreshing truth is that when you're living your entire life from a place of authenticity, you recover a lot of lost energy spent filtering or masking what others can see. No longer suffer from imposter syndrome, that gut feeling that your persona doesn't feel authentic to you or to others. Instead, you enjoy a special kind of freedom. The result is that you embrace exactly who you are, and the world finally gets to see the real you.
Yes. This is it's a 17-year project of a journey for myself of working with, or just growing up with a very busy mom who was working back in the MedMen era. And I was a latchkey kid, and my sisters and I would just do life, but I always wondered what she was doing. She was just so busy, but she was so happy. And she was literally, producing films and video and doing that MedMen era thing back in the 60s. And so I grew up with her being very busy and being very productive, but it was a limited time we got together. And then I got in the workforce and I did the same thing with my daughter. And I got busy and then I thought, I took a break for about 9 years and did some nonprofit work and some other things. And it was at that moment, at least, that our marriage kind of went just in the basement. Everything was just horrible. And I was sitting there going, what am I doing with my life? And who am I? And who have I been saying I am? And I just went on a deep journey. And what I really learned is that you don't need to be more productive to be more you. And authenticity is easy. It's hard when we're trying to be something we're not. And it was just a journey, but it was a lot of deep work and a lot of counseling. And then I got into recovery work with other people, that I'm working on their marriages and working on themselves. And then I started as a leader at Southwest, went back to Southwest. And when I was, literally we were acquiring AirTran, this company. And we thought, how can we bring these people in and be a part of this culture? And one of my friends said, there's this tool called StrengthsFinder. Let's try that. And so we did that. And it was amazing. In marketing, I was a marketing leader. I did not realize how impactful that one tool was going to be on my life. And it really helped me identify and unlock my unique talents. And then I was a coach while I was there. And so I was doing my day job in marketing, but then I was helping other leaders across the company integrate this in. And then finally our president said, let's become a strength-based organization. So 5 years ago, I started my business as a consultant, and I got to really help Gallup work on the strategy of what Southwest needed to become a strengths-based airline. And it was during that I saw the things I was working on my recovery work, and the things I was working on in leadership were the same. And I was like, wow, why don't we talk about this at work? Why don't we talk about how to be authentic and how to be yourself and talk about your feelings and all the things that was happening. So that became my life work, was to say, it's okay to be authentic at work and to be yourself. And it's not one day that passes, I'm sure in the work you do as well, where somebody's in a role that's not right, or they're trying to lead people based on a persona they've created that's not right. And it's causing a lot of friction on the team. And so being able to unlock all that. And part of the book is really having people take this assessment that I created called the Authentic Imprint Assessment. And it's where they unlock and figure out where they are as a leader in their journey and what they need to work on, whether it might be the core values, the mission, the strengths, and then what is the emotional intelligence around that? That's the multiplier for the formula. And so people can take the assessment and then read the book and see where they are, and then go back and take it and see improvement.
I have to say a couple of things to what you've shared so far. First, I have to imagine listeners and viewers are leaning in and really relating to that idea of, not being able to be themselves in their lives, or certainly at work. And I can imagine some people might even be touched to tears here, moved to tears by getting present to what that feels like. So I want to first start there. And then when you talk about authenticity, one of the things that I have been really working on as well, and centering in my work too, is helping organizations and leaders to be able to create an environment where people feel like they really matter and they belong. It's very hard to be your authentic self if you don't feel like you belong someplace. And so belonging, when it first started being talked about, it was discussed as, we accept you here. Who wants to be accepted or tolerated? I don't want to be accepted or tolerated. I want to be welcomed. I want to be celebrated. I want other people to as well. And when you do feel celebrated and welcomed, you can be much more authentic. So there's so much that we can do as leaders to be able to create an environment for people to step into the space that you're inviting us into as well.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It's coming in and really saying, we care about you and you're valued. And we know that from Gallup.
Exactly.
It's the reason. The research shows that when employees feel valued, they're more engaged, that their work is meaningful, and people are watching and connecting their meaningful work with the mission of the company. So it's pretty powerful.
It is. And as you know, I'm also a fellow Gallup certified strengths coach and have been for more than 10 years. Really important work. And it's amazing how much people can learn about themselves when they do that. Now, if you would, next, you've mentioned your authentic imprint framework, but let's just talk more deeply about that. What is it, and bring it to life for our listeners and viewers?
Yeah. So when you think about it, I was like, okay, you learn your strengths. And I've been a strengths coach for about 13 years now. I have to count up. And one of the things that I realized is people are like, okay, now what? And you've probably seen this in your work as you come in and oh yeah, we did that strengths, but it's in the drawer somewhere and I don't know who I am. And so I was like, yes. And that's why I think one of the successes we had at Southwest is we kept it in a drip, drip, drip mode. And we had a strategy. It wasn't just, oh, come and do this and you're done. And I think it's like working out at the gym. You have to practice using your unique talents. And a lot of it, as you know, Elise, is going back to the past and getting rid of old patterns and things that haven't served you. So today I was with a group online and we were talking about the drama triangle and how we're either, that from the 60s, where you're either blaming somebody else for something they've done at work, or you're fixing something, or you're avoiding. And so what we did is we flipped the triangle and said, look at the authentic imprint. And the authentic imprint is a formula. It's your strengths plus your core values plus your mission times your emotional recognition. And the emotional recognition piece is something we see all the time in the workplace, right? They might be aware of themselves, but not self-aware of how they're coming across. And so the authentic imprint is a formula that you can do in your mind very quickly when you see yourself going in an emotional state, or you're feeling inferior, or things aren't feeling, you're off. It's like, wait, let me get back to my center of who I am. And then let me approach my day intentionally instead of let me reacting to everything happening in the day. I'm going to design my day. And I'm not going to live in default. And I was doing a lot of that, living in default, and just, who can I help? Who can I fix? Who can I, and then it was like, I'd be drained. And I think that's a typical leader today. There's just so much chaos and they're having trouble keeping up with the chaos and clarity.
Yeah.
And so it's really an internal work, this authentic imprint. And that's why it's called the book is called The Internal Revolution, because we can't get it from external. It's got to start here in the work that we're doing here. And it's hard. That's why a lot of people don't want to do the internal work, because they have to go work on themselves, and they want to do that sometimes.
Oh, I mean, I was just delivering a 2.5-day workshop for a client last week, and high level people. And I think by the beginning of the second day, somebody said, this is so great, but I'm worried that when I go back to work, this is all going to go away. And we're taking time that we don't usually take to step into this kind of self-awareness, probing sort of place that you're teaching us. And so the thought was that this was going to be a one and done thing. And then they were aware of that and they were afraid of it. And I suggested if you just check in with yourself, like start the day with the Savers program, the silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing, etc. Just even 5-10 minutes can make a big difference to check in with yourself and to center yourself. So making it really more of a discipline, right? A part of your day, not just something you do occasionally.
Absolutely. And I think that the word is intentional. Instead of being worried about the world and what's going to happen and who's going to do what, it's like, no, what do I have and what do I need and what is my intention today? And so that's why 5-6 years ago, I created the Strengths Journal and launched that with my business, which is the only daily planner to go along, a companion guide to the strengths.
Yes.
So now I combine, if you want to get the book and get the Strengths Journal, if you've got your strengths, that's great. If you don't, you can still use the book. You don't have to know your strengths. But it's how do you discover, that power, your just God-given power that you have. And then how do you align that with your unique contribution that you've made to the world? And so many people they don't talk nice to themselves, right?
Right.
We don't want that.
Right.
So this kind of helps transform that.
Mm-hmm. And part of what I really appreciated about what Gallup has done, I've been a Gallup fan for years, but I remember, I think it was during the pandemic when they started really talking about their work on well-being. And
Yeah.
well-being is such a beautiful complement to what we're talking about here,
Mhm.
cultivating your own sense of well-being. And I know that there are 5 essential dimensions of well-being that Gallup
Mhm.
covers. Do you want to situate those real quick for us?
Sure. Yes. So, and they're in order of importance.
Okay.
So the first one, which blows everybody away, is number 1 is social. We need 6 hours of social interaction with a human being every day.
I
So
was blown away by that figure, I have to
yes,
say.
yes, and especially during COVID. But that doesn't mean, yes, we're getting social on a recording like this, or we're getting social in when we're talking. It's when when people would just go and isolate and not have any human to human contact.
Right.
So number 1 is social. And then I'm sorry, and number 1 is career well-being, which is purpose. And then number 2 is social. Career well-being is what you talk about all the time with living, working on purpose. So I like what I do every day, and I feel like I can use my talents to do good, and I have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the doctor this morning, and she said she works with a lot of people that are in different ages, but she said, my retirees, I see their health go down right away because they lose purpose.
Yeah, sure.
And then the third one, so career, social, and then the third is physical. Physical is what I put in my body and what I do with my body. So it's not just people just think, oh, I went and walked, but yeah, what are you eating? What are you putting in your head? What is your mindset around all this? And then the next one is financial. I know where my money is, and I have a good handle on my money. The last is community well-being. So community is, I feel safe where I live, and I am a part of my community. I get to volunteer. I get to go do something. I was doing a group of Southwest employees last year in marketing, and they were evaluating their core values as a team, and they all realized that they hadn't been, and their well-being, and they realized that they hadn't done any kind of giving back as a group. And they had a lot of change. And so after that, they said, we're going to go do one of our, pull up one of our old opportunities to go, whether it be, Habitat for Humanity or Ronald McDonald House, as a group. And that kind of met that community need, but also for them to bond as a team. So it was kind of 2 well-being things at once.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So much that we can work on there. And let's let our listeners and viewers think about those 5 essential areas as we grab our first break. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Dana Williams. She's an author, coach, speaker, and founder of Dana Williams Consulting. We've been talking a bit about where her book came from and why she's out to help the people the way that she is, and also her formula. After the break, we're going to talk about how to put in place some of the strategies that she lays out in her book. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, as I am dedicated to helping create a world where organizations thrive because their people thrive, are led by inspirational leaders that help them find and contribute their greatness, and we do business that betters the world. I keep researching and writing my own books, as Dana was mentioning. One of my latest is called The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. And I wrote that to help readers understand the lay of today's workforce. What do they want to need to give their best for you and why? want to stay. And then I provide you 22 best practices to equip you to provide that in your leadership and your culture. You can find my books on Amazon or my website, elisecortez.com. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Dana Williams. She's the author of The Internal Revolution, Lead Authentically and Build Your Personal Brand from Within. So one of the many things I enjoyed about your book is that it's chock full of all kinds of strategies and useful tools. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you talk about fairly early on in your book is that you offer 3 fundamental transformations that take place along the way as your internal revolution journey continues. So let's talk about those 3 transformations.
Yes. So really, and this is so wild, Elise, today. And this group that I was with, we did a poll, and I said, what is the one thing that is the hardest for you at work, for you as a communicator, as a leader, and for your team? And it was clarity. Mm. And so if we're not clear on the inside, we're not going to be clear out here.
Right.
And you kind of have that feeling, and you know something's not clear, but you just keep going through, and it comes out kind of it's just not right. So in this book, we really want to help you discover and own and live in your unique strengths, and then really identify and live in your values. Those are usually your strengths, and your core values are doorways to each other. They knit and match. So usually when you show me your core values, we can line up your strengths that match right with that. And it's just a doorway to your strengths. And I think that it gives a lot of clarity. And then mission, being able to I do this so that people can blah, 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 whatever you're solving. And for me, my mission is, and I created this almost 7 or 8 years ago, but it's to help people birth their purpose and live in their strategies or their strengths every day. And I added the day every day about 4 years ago. And because I realized that we're a work in progress, the leader we are right now isn't going to be the leader that we need to be 6 months, 12 months from now. And with all the AI and all of the things happening, I'm looking at strategies as a marketer for 2026 differently than I looked at 2025 and 2024. People are inundated with content. And how do we be clear? But we got to be clear on the inside about who we are, what our strengths are, what our values and mission. If we can't identify that, we're going to be kind of just living in default. Mm-hmm. That's number 1.
I'll comment on the values piece in that I am surprised. I do this a fair amount also as well, where I take people through a values identification process. And it's amazing to me how much clarity people get out of that exercise, right? Mm-hmm. And so in my case, I socialize a list of 100 values and their definitions. Mm-hmm. And then they pick the ones that most resonate with them, get down to a list of 10, and then prioritize 1 to 10. And that clarity is such a clarifying compass for people. I'm amazed at that. People that are 40s, 50s, 60s, that are doing that exercise and gaining something out of it. It's amazing.
It really is. And I think core values really help when you're making decisions.
Absolutely.
And when you're saying not only decisions for your team, but for yourself. And I was just coaching a leader this afternoon on that. And she had high responsibility with her strengths, mm-hmm. but she had a very high core value of making sure that she served everybody. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, how are you managing that? Because people with high responsibility, the basement or when it gets in a blind spot is hard to say no.
Yeah, right.
And so helping her realize she can't, who are you serving as a leader? What is your mission? And so once she identified her core values and her mission, then she got clarity. So that really helps. And then the second one is just from lacking purpose. We've been talking about this. I think it's the red thread of consistency throughout here is how do you go from lacking purpose to purposeful? Well, a lot of it is how you start your day. I used to say in the airline business, if we get those first planes out on time, the rest of the day we're good.
Right.
Everything in the morning is off. It's going to be off all day. Same thing with us as human beings. And so I like to use the strength journal as intentionality and say, here's my purpose for my intention for today. And here's the 3 things I'm going to do. And let me apply my strengths to help me get energized to do those. Because it's about not managing your time, it's managing your energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I really understand that. I've been using that in my coaching as well.
Yeah. And I think so many people think, oh, I have to do it. Back to my statement about you don't need to be more productive. It's about who are you and what are the strengths you're going to use every day to help you be energized, because we have unlimited amount of energy there. And then the last thing is really going from isolated to connected. Right now, we're in a society where there's a lot of loneliness going on. There is a lot of people that aren't connected and they're isolating. They could be around a lot of people, but they're isolating and they're lonely. And so how do you transform your relationships and your to be your authentic self? And thinking about your relationships. One thing when I started this book is I realized I wasn't spending time with my girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think because I was busy working, right? And so we intentionally play Mahjong every week. And that I try not to let anything get in the way of that. It also helps me with my social well-being every week. So it's kind of hitting several things. And that's what I like about thinking about yourself and managing your day intentionally. But then at the end of the day, I love this. My editor, her husband's from Norway, and he always said, "Are you satisfied with today?" And instead of saying, "How was your day?" Are you satisfied with it? Did you live out your purpose today, your intention? Intentionally, are you satisfied today?
That's really powerful. I like that question so much better than how was your day?
Yeah,
So much better.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's dive a little bit more deeply into your formula. We've already talked more about the values. Of course, we've said something about that, but I do want to talk a bit more deeply about strengths. My experience is when people hear about this idea of, discovering your strengths, that sounds kind of woo-woo or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they do get their strengths results back, they get their top 5, or if they unlock the whole 34, what I've discovered is a lot of people look at those and they're like, "Look, those aren't strengths. Those are just me."
Mm-hmm.
So they don't recognize them as strengths. And so let's talk a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about the power of really discovering and leaning into our strengths.
Yeah, I think the way I talk about it a lot is I think we kind of put labels on ourselves early on, or somebody does. And when you take this assessment, it's over 6 decades of research.
Yeah.
And Dr. Clifton created it when he said, back in the 50s, he said, what if we study what's right with people instead of what's wrong with them?
Right.
So that's why it's positive psychology. So that's one thing. But I think the other thing is because he bought the Gallup companies in the 90s and since has, taken the assessment further. Now 35 million people have taken it. You really see, like you said, people go, this is me. How did they know this is me? And when you start comparing your results with somebody else's that might have, like you and I might have, one of the same talents, like strategic or ideation, our reports are going to be different because we're 1 in 35 million people. So when you think about that, at least we're in Texas. There's 28 million people here. We have to go outside of the state of Texas and find 5 more million people before we find somebody just like us.
Yeah. That's happened to me in a workshop. I was doing a strengths finder for leadership women, and I said that stat, it's the chances of somebody having the exact same
1 in 30.
five strengths as you in the exact order is 1 in 33 million. And these 2 women stood up on their feet and they went, "That's us." It was it was amazing. I've been doing these workshops for years and that has never happened.
They had to. Wow. I've never had that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. No, it's, and so the other thing that I want to situate about strengths is the energizing aspect of living in them, right? The motivating aspect of living them. When the more that we get to live our strengths, the more energy that we have, the more vitality that we have, and the more our intrinsic motivation is activated. And that's, I think, really important for people to associate when they're thinking about the importance in living and leaning into their strengths.
Yeah. So today we were on this webinar and we had about 35 people on there, and they were talking about when they go into that default mode, that emotional piece of just reacting to things instead of reflecting. And when you know your unique talents, it's like, which one am I going to turn up and which one am I going to turn down? Because they can get in your way.
Right.
And so I kind of think it like a superhero, and you're just kind of pushing your buttons to, depending on the situation, using your emotional recognition to figure that out. But I think that helps a lot, is identifying them and then how to use them, when to use them. I think is important.
I do too. We won't talk more about the mission and the emotional regulation because I think recognition, because I think you've handled that already. And there's more things I want to pull from your book. I would love for you to speak to the strategy that you encourage us to use, and that's drawing your life map.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? Not
like you're teaching us. No.
Yeah. I had a counselor have me do it when I was going through this deep, dark time. And all of a sudden, what you do is you get a piece of paper and you draw a line, birth and now, and you look at, all the things that have happened in your life, good and bad, and you put them on there. And then I have people put when they saw some, the ups and downs, and then what strengths they saw, because your strengths have kind of been with you your whole life. But all of a sudden, the big thing here is you start seeing a pattern. It could be a familiar pattern. It could be a pattern that you've just carried. For me, it was with being, my mom being gone a lot and my dad being gone. I became like a kind of a person that was always like taking care of everybody, fixing things, and being a little bit codependent. And I was like, ooh, that's where that came from. How do I do I want to bring that with me into the next 30, 40 years? How do I shift? And it's learning to say, oh, that is not me. Here's my strengths. Here's what I'm going to use instead to manage me, instead of trying to help manage everything else. Because I think when you live in that when any kind of environment, we all can go back to childhood and different things, but we pick up habits and we think that's just the way they are. And then I can be that way. But when you look at your map and think, no, I'm going to design it how I want to be in the next 30 years. And you actually draw another line today and where you want to be. And what is that? You've heard this, when your 80th. My mom did this on her 80th. She said she was going to go back to college, and she did. And she graduated at 86. You got
with her PhD, which is just amazing.
So it's like, yeah, where do I want to, who's at that party? What are they saying? What is my legacy? And so if I'm going to keep some of those old patterns I don't want to keep, what does this look like? And what are the things I want to do in this next map? So you get to draw out your map, and it really, really is powerful. And I've done it with millennials, Gen X. I've done it with baby boomers, done it with everybody. The baby boomers had a hard time getting their maps drawn. And I think it's because the generation before was always, don't talk about that. Don't talk, be quiet. And this is, no, put it out there. What happened, and how did you react, and what are those patterns, and why are you holding on to those? How can you, when you go forward, what are some things that you can, and I see it in my kids and grandkids. I'm like, woo, I've got to stop that. So, it's teaching it. That was another thing, is this legacy behind us that we're leaving. And what does that look like? So being able to draw your map.
It's so powerful. And then so the tools that you give in the book are just tremendous. And so I got so much out of that for myself. And the idea of legacy, I do want to talk more about that specifically with and through how you do have a very specific way of following your internal compass. I want to talk about that next after our break. Let's grab that.
Okay.
I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Dana Williams. She's an executive coach, speaker, author, and the founder of Dana Williams Consulting. We've been diving into some strategies that she has in her book about how we can really learn about our strengths, our values, our mission, our internal or emotional regulation. After the break, we're going to take her through some more deeply into some of the ways that she helps people get acquainted to and connected to these areas. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at EliseCortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. As you know by now, this program is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you along your journey to realize more of your potential. If you want to learn more about how we can work together and learn about the Gusto Now Academy for leaders and individuals on various journeys alike, make your way to gusto-now.com and then go to the training tab and you'll find the Academy information there. If you are just now joining us, my guest is Dana Williams. She's the author of The Internal Revolution, Lead Authentically and Build Your Personal Brand from Within. So for this next thing that I want to cover, you situated us before we were on break about the opportunity to really be mindful and intentional about our legacy. Mm-hmm. So I love the tool and the steps that you provide in your book about following your internal compass and knowing your mission. So we talked about the idea of the importance of mission before, but now I want to dig into the details. So you have a 4-step process. Can we walk through that?
Yes. And I think most people, when you ask, and I think coming from marketing, we always had a mission, right? We always had a key thing that kept us, focused. And so when you're working on your personal mission, people just haven't thought about that. And I was like, okay, how can we help people really understand their mission and their internal compass? And I think it's just 4 ways. So first off, who are you serving? You might be serving, maybe you're a teacher and you're serving students. Maybe you're an executive. Maybe you're a board member. Maybe you're running a nonprofit. But who do you most care about serving right now in this time in your life? And then step 2 is find your positive impact. What changes for these people when you are at your best? So when you work with somebody, you help them do something, and you got to think about the transformation that you're helping people do. For Elise, I hear you say, the gusto and working on purpose. And that is the transformation you're making. Mm-hmm. And the transformation I'm working on is birthing their purpose inside first. And so as individuals. And so it's thinking about that. And then step 3 is if you know your strengths and your values, it helps energize and motivate you. So I'm always going to take you back to that because that's your uniqueness. And then includes how you create change, how you make things happen. And then I just have people write it in pencil. The marketing side of me says, do not make it very long. Something you can remember. Mm-hmm, so many people write sentences. And I said, that's beautiful, but we need to go a little shorter. Something you can remember and something that you can say. And then when you combine your audience and your impact into one bold sentence. So I changed, mine evolved over the 8 years, but it's, help leaders birth their purpose and live in their strengths every day. Mm-hmm. And then I see transformation from the inside out. So it's been exciting to work with companies and individuals. I work with a lot of leaders and then teams, and it's been real exciting to see the transformation, but it doesn't happen overnight. And you know that, Elise, it takes time.
It does. And, I want to echo step 2 here to find your positive impact. And you talk about situating the changes that these people that you're serving get when you're helping get to their best. I want to give a shout out to a previous guest, Wendy Lipton-Dibner. She's created a formula and really a capture tool to help people really recognize their impact. And so even if you don't use her tool, the notion of getting really clear about the impact that you intend for your people that you're serving to have, and then once you can actually capture what it is, that is so important to keep you motivated, connected. When you really know your own impact and how much you really are mattering in the world, it keeps you getting up every day, no matter how tired you are, how little sleep you've had, too much you have on your plate, whatever it is. So I really want to emphasize that step 2. I think that's a really critical piece that you're giving us.
And I think, Elise, too, when you were talking, it just really keeps coming back to me is it's not hard when you're being your unique self and you can say it easily and you don't have a lot of fancy words and you don't have all this. It's just being you.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're in your authentic self when that happens.
It really isn't a better feeling to really
Mm-hmm.
stand completely in your authenticity and be of service to your purpose and know that you're making a difference. There really isn't a better feeling than that, as far as I've discovered in my life.
It's kind of like a little natural high.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's the best drug ever.
4 a.m.
The best drug ever.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
I do want to touch a little bit more deeply on the idea of emotional recognition. And I
Yes.
loved what you said before, Dana, about, especially in organizations, emotions can be taboo or no. We don't talk about emotions. We don't do emotions here. What are emotions? But you have a stat in your book that Gallup study found that managers account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement. And so leaders who can notice and name and respond to their emotional state before it shapes their actions create what you call emotional safety for their teams. Those who can't become unpredictable forces draining energy from everyone around them. I think that's a really important thing because emotions get a bad rap, right? So let's talk a little bit more deeply about how you help people get more connected to their emotional recognition.
Yeah, I think, and I, worked for a brand that was an emotional brand, Southwest Heart.
Yep, right.
So if somebody had a death in the family, or if somebody had a dog that died, or we did something for them, and it was very, what do they need? How, a lot of caring nature. So it grew up building that culture and helping with that culture. So it's a natural thing that I think about, but it's like, what would you do in your family if somebody lost a loved one? I had a recent situation where one of the employees died in the group. And so it was real. And the leader was doing a fantastic job of giving everybody space. And this is what we know. And this is what y'all need to go, take time for yourself. And so there's emotional recognition, and each person on the team needs something different depending on how they were associated with that person or what is going on. And then what happens in our personal life shows up at work, and can't help it. Right. And what happens at work shows up at home. So how do we, as leaders, managing ourselves and managing our families, and then how do we that have a purview of quite a few people that report to us, how do we make sure that when something's off, that we're helping them recognize it and get some help? I had a leader one time who was really just not doing well, and I knew something was off. And I just told him, I said, you are CEO of your life and your health right now. And I just need you to take some time off and figure out what's going on. And he so appreciated that, because I think it's harder for people. It's like family members, they don't see it. But as leaders, we're not trained how to, we're not trained in well-being. We're not trained in some of these psychological things. And so people are scared sometimes of what to say. And I think if you just do the human caring thing, when there is something wrong or there's something you can't miss, again, it's going back to your authentic self. And there's not a blueprint for that. It's what works for you, but in an emotional recognition way where you understand the different people in the room.
And that you're attuned to them and connected to them. That you can expand your emotional vocabulary beyond mad, sad, happy, glad, whatever, frustrated, all those stressed, all those kind of things. So important. In fact, when I'm out speaking, Dana, so often what I'm trying to do is help the audience feel, connect to their feelings, connect. And of course, what I really want, I want to inspire them to a place where they get moved to tears. That's what I really want. And if that happens, then I know I've done my job. If eyes are dry in the room, I didn't do it. But I today, what I find is that so many people are so divorced from their emotions. They don't understand those beautiful aspects of themselves, and they don't therefore derive the benefit of really knowing them and honoring them and working through them.
Yeah. And I think I was talking to a leader that's a mom, and she was talking about raising her daughters. And she said, if we can just raise them to be resilient and to learn how to deal with the good and the bad instead of trying to make everything just good for them. And I said, oh my gosh, that is so, I think it just, each generation's different. We've got 5 generations in the workplace right now, and they all need something different, and they've all been raised differently. So how do we recognize that and help guide them as they're managing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So much opportunity to help people. It's such a beautiful thing to get to do. We're getting close to the end of the show, and I definitely wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to share a story or an example of somebody that maybe you've worked with, so we can understand a bit of how does this journey of an internal revolution work? What's the opportunity in it?
Yeah. So I had a team leader that came to me almost 2.5 years ago and said, she wanted to see if we could work with her team. She wanted them to get more engaged and understanding kind of as they were growing and leading their teams. And so we started working with them, and it wasn't an overnight something, but all of a sudden this summer, they got a huge, like 16% increase in engagement. And she said it was after we did the drip, drip, drip of everything, because it is a roadmap. But once they developed their mission and their core values and their strengths around that as a team, the clarity broke through.
Mm.
And I think it was such a great example, because I think people just need to know the work I'm doing matters every day, and I matter, like we started off the conversation talking about.
Right.
And it takes a while to get there, to build the mission and all the stuff, but we want to make sure it takes a while, because I want to build the roadmap with them, knowing who they are first, and then how they work with their team. And then now, how are we going to impact our others within the organization and the world with what we do?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big impact.
So I have to know, because I've done some of that similar work, that some of the things that happen is that you build trust and help the team build trust with each other. They're like, oh, that's why, you have analytical and your top 5 strengths, and I have achiever, really top 5. So when you ask me that barrage of questions, it's not that you're trying to stop me from doing what I really want to do and get this done. It's that you need that kind of detail in order to make sense of it and to be able to make a contribution. And I think that's really important when we can help our teams understand those different dynamics and how we're coming at things differently because of our strengths, because of our values. And then I love the idea of that shared mission statement. Beautiful.
It's really been powerful. It's funny. It's just that intersection of when you're marketing a brand and you're creating a messaging for a group. It's a neat intersection because they really get alignment, and they were part of crafting it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that somebody came in and said, here's you are, and here's your mission. It was like they got to develop it.
Yeah, what we get out of that is ownership, and we like that. Well, this show, Dana, is listened to by people around the world, and they often tune in because they are trying to become better versions of themselves in some way, whether as individuals, as leaders. They're trying to elevate the culture of their organization. They're trying to really cultivate who they are as humans in the world of work. What would you like to leave them with?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I think thinking about what is the impact you want to make in the world, and go do that. There's only one you to do it. And if something has been boiling up inside of you, but you've been afraid to do it, use your unique talents to do it, and you will make what I call, and I love to talk about this concept of you're lighting a little fire and that you're building inside you, like what you're doing, Elise. But then you've got all these little campfires. If you would look at the United States and the world, I know you go all over the world, at the campfires you've lit and the impact you're making, you don't even get to see that.
Yeah.
But I want to leave them with, do not be more productive, be more you. And the way that happens is you just sharing the impact that you can bring to the world. And I love working with different difference makers who want to make an impact, and they're wanting to work on themselves. And it's not easy work, right? You got to work hard on yourself, but it's so easy when you start doing it and realizing you're being yourself. So.
What a beautiful way to finish, Dana. I'm so happy to know you, grateful for our connection, for our friendship, and to be able to share you with my listeners and viewers around the world. Thank you for coming on Working on Purpose.
Thank you, Elise. It's my pleasure to be here today and be a part of your amazing show and get to connect with your listeners. So thank you.
Most welcome. Listeners and viewers, you are going to want to learn more about Dana Williams, her work as an executive coach and speaker at Dana Williams Consulting, and her new book, The Internal Revolution. So you can start by visiting her website. It's danawilliamsco.com. Let me spell that for you. Dana is D-A-N-A, Williams, W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S, co.com, danawilliamsco.com. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it via recorded podcast. See you next week for another educational and nourishing conversation. Together, let's lean in and learn how to create destination workplaces that call forth the best from everyone, build our inspirational leadership capacity, and find ways to do business that betters the world. Let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.